Colossians 1:19 reads, "For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him." Fullness, this is translated from the Greek word pleroma and was really just another way to say that Jesus is truly God. Dwell used here is the same sense of permanent dwelling. So Paul wanted to emphasize the idea that Jesus was not temporarily but is permanently God. John 1, verse 1 and 14, we read, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us, full of grace and truth." Jesus, who was fully God, became fully man when he was born into this world. The false teachers at Colossus said that all physical things were evil, but God affirmed the goodness of the physical creation when Jesus took on a physical body. At the same time, Jesus did not cease to be fully God. Colossians 1 verse 19 tells us God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him. How much of fullness does God have? Well, he's God, so a lot, isn't it? Jeremiah 23 verse 24 reads, "Do not I fill heaven and earth, declares the Lord." All the fullness of God, God's fullness that fills the whole universe, that fills heaven and earth, all that fullness dwells in Jesus Christ. In John 10:30, Jesus said, "I and the Father are one." He spoke these words in his physical body after he had taken on flesh. Even as a human being, all the fullness of God dwelt in him. Jesus was fully God and fully man. He became fully human without ceasing to be fully God. The gospel begins with this great truth. Just as God created all things through Christ, so God will also reconcile all things through Christ. Let's look at verse 20 of Colossians 1. "And through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross." There are two main things we have to learn from this verse. We will go through one of the two today. First, God will reconcile all things to himself through Jesus. The word translated reconcile here literally means to reconcile back or to restore something to its original state. We learned that all God's creation was good, but now we read about this need for things to be reconciled. So, what happened? Sin entered the world, and that changed everything. When we tend to think of sin, we think it as a personal problem, but sin affected the whole creation. Notice that God is the one who reconciles. The initiative for reconciliation comes from God. We didn't reach out to God, God reached out to us first. And notice that this reconciliation takes place through Christ, through the one who is fully God and fully man. The fact that God will reconcile all things through Christ tells us that Christ's work is broader than just saving man and woman. Creation itself will be restored. Romans 8:20 and 21. "For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the glorious freedom of the children of God." When God created the world, all things were in perfect harmony with his will. Sin changed all that, but through Christ, God will change it back. Do you believe that? Do you have that hope? Be blessed.